Gather round, for tonight I have a bone-chilling tale to tell, one that whispers through the ages carried by the wind and shadows. A story of three friends who ventured where no soul should wander. Eli, Casey and Jordan had been hiking for hours when they first stumbled upon the entrance to the cave. The hollow mountain caves were rumoured to be ancient, a network of tunnels and caverns that had been around for centuries. The locals talked about the caves like they were cursed, a place where no one had ever come back the same, if they returned at all. Eli had always been the adventurous one, dragging his friends along on hikes, seeking out places people talked about only in whispers. When they reached the mouth of the cave, the cool breeze that flowed out of it felt like a warning. But Eli wasn't having it. Come on, guys. This is going to be incredible. Imagine what we could discover down there. Jordan wasn't so sure. I don't know, Eli. This feels wrong. Casey was already peering into the darkness, squinting. I don't like that it feels like the cave goes on forever. We'll be back before dark, right? Of course, Eli said with a grin. We'll be in and out. It'll be fine. But as they entered the cave, the atmosphere shifted. The light from their flashlights flickered strangely against the stone walls, casting long, twisted shadows that seemed to move on their own. The smell of damp earth filled the air, mixed with an odd metallic scent that sent a chill down Casey's spine. It was almost as if the cave itself breathed. The deeper they ventured, the more the air seemed to press in on them, heavy and suffocating. The sound of their footsteps echoed in the vast, oppressive space, and with each step they felt as though the tunnel was closing in around them. "You guys hearing that?" Jordan asked, his voice shaky. "It sounds like whispers." Eli paused, looking at him like he was crazy. "You're just hearing things. Let's keep going." But Casey heard it too now. Faint voices, just on the edge of hearing, murmuring unintelligibly. They couldn't make out the words, but they could feel them, like a cold weight pressing on their chests. "Let's turn back," Casey said, her voice trembling. "This place isn't right." But before they could even consider heading back, the passageway ahead of them widened, revealing a large cavern. In the middle of the room was a large stone altar, its surface covered in strange markings that seemed to glow faintly under their flashlights. Around the altar, the walls were covered in ancient carvings, depictions of creatures that resembled wraith-like figures, twisted and monstrous. "Holy crap!" Eli breathed, approaching the altar. "What is all this? What did they do here?" But as they stepped closer, the air grew colder. The whispers grew louder, now clear enough to make out words, though they weren't in any language the three of them recognized. The voices sounded wrong, like they were being dragged from deep within the earth. Then, with a sudden crack that echoed through the cavern, a figure appeared, tall, cloaked in shadow, its face hidden in the folds of its hood. Its presence was chilling, and the very air seemed to warp around it. The whispers suddenly stopped, replaced by a low, gravelly growl that made the ground beneath them tremble. "Do not disturb the hollow," the figure hissed, its voice like gravel scraping against stone. The three friends froze, their breath caught in their throats. The figure stepped forward, and a heavy silence descended. Then, without warning, the ground beneath their feet cracked open, revealing a dark abyss. "Run!" Eli shouted, and the three of them bolted. But the cave seemed to shift around them, twisting and shifting, the walls closing in on them as if the cave itself was alive. Their flashlights flickered, casting fleeting glimpses of the twisted shadows that followed them. Wraiths, their limbs long and unnatural, dragging themselves along the walls with ragged, jerking movements. They could hear them whispering in the darkness, their voices no longer unintelligible but clear, promises of death and eternity in the dark. Casey screamed as something cold and clammy brushed against her leg. She looked down, but there was nothing there. The whispering grew louder, more urgent. "Run faster, faster." It beckoned. They scrambled through the narrow tunnels, the light barely illuminating the way. Their hearts were pounding in their chests as they pushed forward, but the air was thick, like running through molasses. The deeper they went, the heavier the atmosphere became until they could hardly breathe. Just when they thought they would collapse from exhaustion, they finally saw a glimmer of light ahead, the exit. The cave was closing behind them, but the figure, now in full view, was blocking their path. With one final burst of energy, they charged toward the light. The sound of the creature's growl echoed in the distance, growing fainter and fainter, until it was swallowed by the cave behind them. They didn't stop running until they were far away from the cave, gasping for air and feeling the weight of what they had just witnessed settle heavily on their hearts. But when they turned to look back, the cave was silent again, as if nothing had ever happened. Eli, Casey and Jordan never spoke of the experience again. They tried to forget the dark presence that stalked them in the caves, the whispers that echoed through the rocks, but they would never forget the feeling of being hunted by something older than they could ever comprehend. Have you ever found yourself hopelessly lost, confused, and feeling like you were being watched? Beware. There are terrifying and mysterious beings that few have ever seen and lived to talk about. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe and follow us for more. Join us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook and YouTube for more bone-chilling chronicles, if you dare.